Earlier tonight, I spoke with Ben Shapiro, editor-in-chief of the Daily Wire. What do you make of this? Is it an anomaly, or do you think this is a movement?
No, I do think this is a movement. I think the next wave of Democrats are going to be much closer Bernie Sanders brand Democrats than even Nancy Pelosi brand Democrats. And what you see here is the sort of howling at the moon branch of the Democratic Party, in which they throw out whatever radical proposal they want and then suggest that this is truly authentic, that moral clarity lies in making proposals that are completely untenable, that will never be paid for. You know, this person was on MSNBC this morning, and she was asked specifically about how she'd pay for all of this, and she proceeded to blab for a solid 2 minutes without giving an answer to that question, because she doesn't have a way of paying for any of this. But, of course, the Democratic base has decided that it is much more important to have somebody who is virtue signaling about why everybody should have a government job and why housing should be government provided than to actually have candidates who have policies that can never be implemented.
Yeah, she was talking about President Trump also earlier on MSNBC and calling him a authoritarian hyper-capitalist is the way that she termed him. And, you know, when you look back, let's look back at this shot from President Trump, and the difference in President Obama is how they approach capitalism.
If you got a business, you didn't build that. Somebody else made that happen.
Nobody's cut regulations like we have. Nobody's created tax cuts like we have.
I mean, there can't be sharper voices that are more different on this issue than we've had in the last two presidents, Ben.
No question. But and I think that's what the Democrats are picking on, is the fact that the Democrats have always been moving in this direction. At least they have been significantly in the past 8 years. There's a reason Bernie Sanders came very close to knocking off Hillary Clinton in primaries, and it is pathetic to say that a near octogenarian is the wave of the future, but I think that Bernie Sanders has a lot more acolytes among the under 30 crowd than Hillary Clinton ever did, and this is pretty good proof of that.
I thought this was, you know, particularly ironic. Lin-Manuel Miranda, who I think is a genius. I thought Hamilton was wonderful, but I think it's interesting that someone who essentially wrote a musical that is a love letter to the founding fathers and to the Federalist Papers and to Alexander Hamilton is applauding. He's saying, congratulations to you. You know, for this woman who is essentially, you know, not essentially, she's put herself out there as a socialist. What do you make of that?
Yeah. And, you know, she's as radical as can be. But, again, it is very easy to virtue signal about policies that have no impact when they're never implemented. Yeah. Bernie Sanders never did anything in the Senate until he ran for president. And I highly doubt that any of the policies that are espoused by Ocasio-Sanchez are really going to result in anything real here, because it's easy to go home and say that big government's going to solve all your problems. When it comes time to hash out the actual legislation, it's going to be pretty difficult to get that stuff passed. So the Democrats, who are so all-fired eager about the new wave of the Democratic future, they may find that this is not in the mainstream. This is a New York district. It has been a Democratic district for 20-odd years. I mean, longer than that. But the person she replaced had been a 10-term congressperson. So it's not as though winning a Democratic primary means you're the wave of the future all across America. It means you want a Democratic Party in New York, for goodness sake.
Yeah, well, Joe Crowley didn't show up for the debate. He might be rethinking that at this point. I have about a minute left with you, Ben, and I do want to ask you your reaction to the huge news today, the resignation of Justice Kennedy, and what you think.
I mean, it's just astonishing, obviously. Yeah. I was really not expecting that Justice Kennedy would step down, given that he's the swing vote. And it gives President Trump an enormous opportunity to remake the court in a conservative constitutionalist image for a full generation, which is, again, President Trump has been both lucky and good. And he has an opportunity now that he's been lucky to be good again here.
Yeah, well, I know you, well, maybe you didn't suggest yourself, but you did suggest.
Hey, I'll take it. If I'm nominated, I'll take it. Come on.
Why not, right? You have nothing else to do.
The confirmation hearings would be lit.
Exactly, they would be. I think it was Ann Coulter who first suggested back when you were 21, when you were a law student at Harvard, that you would actually make an excellent Supreme Court justice. And as you pointed out today, you'd have a pretty good long run at it, most likely.
Yeah, exactly. I may be there for a solid 60 years. So, Mr. President, if you're looking for somebody who's going to have several decades on the court, longer than anybody else you're looking at, I'll throw my hat in the ring. And if not, I'll just cry myself to sleep.
You know what? My Twitter feed is just flowing right now with people who are just jumping on board. Thank you so much, Ben. It's always great to see you. Thanks so much.
Good to see you.